Okay, yeah. Okay, so welcome everyone to the second workshop of the Indian Conference on Logic and its Applications 2025. So this workshop is going to be on Indian traditions in logic, and I'm quite excited about this workshop. I mean, while we have had, I mean, this is one of the themes for ALI as well as for ICLA. Indian traditions in logic. This is very much in the scope of submission topics of ICLA, and it has been the case that in the past we have always regularly had submissions on Indian logic. But I do not know if we have had a full-fledged workshop, to the best of my knowledge. We have had a full-fledged workshop on, a certain aspect of Indian logic before. So, and it's really fascinating, the kinds of traditions that are there here. Okay, in connection with philosophy, the kinds of logical systems that emerged. I think, as I listen to talks, across time. So, for example, in 2021, when it happened online, Agatha Chivitoni gave a talk on Mīmāṁsā and deontic logic, and I was like, wow, that's very cool. And then Bhāma gave a talk at the World Logic Day in 2024. This is cooler, because it is now connecting Indian logic with artificial intelligence. Okay, something which is very much at the forefront of what we are at the world research today, and some old notions from classical notions from deep antiquity, coming to effect in computer science and artificial intelligence. So it's like, wow, this is very cool, and we must have something on this particular theme. So that was the motivation to have this workshop. I will hand it over to the organizers of the workshop, Manidipadi and Bhāma. Bhāma, there are two sessions to this workshop. The first session will be by Professor Prabal Kumar, who is a recognized authority on the subject of Indian logic, and it's really a great privilege for us that he has come all the way, and we are getting to learn about the notions that are there in the system of Mīmāṁsā directly from him. Okay, so I will give it to Manidipadi to tell more about it.
Good afternoon, everybody. This session will learn something about Mīmāṁsā system, because after that there will be a relation. We'll be making a relation between Mīmāṁsā system of Vidhivākyas and the imperative statements. And there are two groups in Mīmāṁsā. One is Bhāṭṭa, the other is Prābhākaras. The Bhāṭṭa Mīmāṁsakas, according to them, the imperative is authoritative in nature. The Prābhākaras claim that the entire Veda is an instrument of knowledge, not by virtue of prescribing means of attaining some end, but by virtue of pointing something that is to be done irrespective of the result of that activity. So we'll be listening to the basic system of Mīmāṁsā from Professor Prabal Kumar.
I'm starting with grammar and then moving there.
Okay.
Because certain grammatical notions are to be brought in, otherwise those discussions cannot even start.
Okay, so it will be the talk will be delivered by Professor Prabal Kumar, who has been a senior faculty at the Department of Philosophy for 40 years, and he is an expert in almost all the schools of Indian philosophy, especially in Nyaya and Vedanta, and also in Mīmāṁsā. So I'll hand over the mic to him, and only that he's asking me to say that actually he will be starting with grammarians, because it is a grammar which first of all focuses upon the analysis of imperative statement, which is very essential for learning imperative logic. So I'm handing over the mic to Professor Shen.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Naiyayikas pointed out, let me say that detailed discussions about injunctions or imperatives can be found in three disciplines in India. One is grammar, obviously, because that deals with language. And in Panini, we have a very sophisticated system. And the next two parts are the Bhāṭṭa and Prābhākara Mīmāṁsā schools, and finally the Nyaya school. But the purpose and approaches are a bit different from each other. But you can say that this discussion and you could say the controversy also went on for more than a few centuries. So not everything can be discussed here. I can only point out the salient features of it. So I'm starting with grammar, but let me start by saying one thing, that these three disciplines have three different purposes. because grammar has been said to be the science of words. It is Padashastra, and how correct words are formed. Then the Mīmāṁsā schools, they basically use sentences, different types of sentences, then how they have to be interpreted. And finally, the Naiyayikas school looks upon language primarily as a means of knowing something. How do authoritative statements make us know about something? That is a primary concern. But as you can see, these areas are overlapping. So I'm starting with grammar. So, really today, my specs are getting cloudy every now and then. Can't see anything. So that grammarians would be interested in sentences or words is clear enough because their main concern is language. But why did the Mīmāṁsā schools become interested in analysis of sentences? You see, the Mīmāṁsā school primarily deals with interpretation of Vedic sentences. And they regard Vedas to be authoritative. And they also have a peculiar theory that these scriptures were not written by anyone. They are eternal and self-validating, sort of prāmāṇa. So, in their view, no Vedic sentence can be wrong or misleading. But the problem is that in the scriptures, we often come across statements that are mutually inconsistent. There are also some statements that are contrary to our experience or even to our normal reasoning. So, how to account for them? If you say that only those parts are not correct, the rest is correct, the Mīmāṁsakas are wholehearters. They won't make any such concession because they would say that once you allow incorrectness to seep in somewhere, it will begin to spread to the other parts because then people would say, if this is incorrect, the other can be also incorrect. And Kumar, one of the primary exponents of Bhāṭṭa Mīmāṁsā, has given a funny example. He says that you see, if a monkey enters a garden and destroys a part of the garden, you cannot say that, well, let it be there. After all, it is only a part that he will destroy because it will also go to other parts. So that is how he says that at all costs, we have to save the sanctity of the Vedas. That is why interpretations become necessary. So you see, the primary meaning, secondary meaning, all these things came on. That maybe the primary meaning of a sentence cannot be accepted, but it means something else. Maybe you take it in a figurative sense or some other sense, so that some room can be made for it. Let me give you one example. You see, there is one sacrifice called Chaturmasya. And in the Vedas it is said that the result of Chaturmasya sacrifice is indestructible. Akshaya Havai Chaturmasya Yajina Phalam Bhavati. But that runs counter to our reasoning because we know that any positive result that is produced is bound to be destroyed at some time or other. Now, the merit earned by a sacrifice is a positive thing, and it is a product. So, at some time or other, it has to be destroyed. So, how can we say that it is indestructible? So, they have to make this concession that, okay, indestructible means which stays for a very long time. As good as indestructible, maybe it continues for years. And so that is as good as indestructible for our practical purposes. But let us not take it in the primary sense. Take two more examples. These scriptures are very particular about these. They are mainly ritualists. And once you get interested in rituals, you have to specify everything. When should the ritual start? How you do, how to perform it? Who should perform it? All these things have to be specified. And so there is one basic sacrifice called Naiyayikas. And there are three statements about it. That it should be performed when the sun is arising, Udita Juhoti. At some other place you find Anudita Juhoti, it should be done when the sun is not there in the sky. And Somaya Dusita Juhoti, that just at the point when the sun is on the horizon, it is not there, but it is not also dark. It should be done then. Now you cannot. So people will get confused that do I have to do it thrice? That makes no sense. So here the Mīmāṁsakas came up with the solution that these are alternatives. All these three are possible. Choose any one option, but once you choose an option, you stick to it. You cannot change every now and then. So that is how these inconsistencies were tried to be resolved in some other cases. And so on. So that is why they become interested in the classification of the Vedic sentences and then their analysis also. But I will come to the Mīmāṁsā school of little later on. Let me start with the grammarians. উনি বলতো কি এত ঝাপসা হয়ে যাচ্ছে না, কিচ্ছু করতে পারছি না, ফোটা করে ঝাপসা হয়ে যাচ্ছে। আচ্ছা, আমার বসার জন্য অসুবিধা হচ্ছে না, এটা ঘুরে যাচ্ছে বলে অসুবিধা হচ্ছে, দেখতে পাচ্ছি না কিচ্ছু। Okay, for the grammarians, you see, sentences are constructed out of words. And how are words formed? So they maintain that every word consists of two parts. One radical or base, which is called prakriti, and some inflection or suffix that is added to it, which is called pratyaya. These can be of various kinds. So the base can be of two types. It is either so you have to get a full-figured word, you add nominal. So that would give you a proper noun to be used in a sentence. This would give you a proper verb. And let me take one or two examples.
These are
Middle name. Okay, okay. Take this example. This is a nominal base, which stands for a man. And let us take a verb, verbal base, gum, which means to go. But not a gum would not be a proper sentence. You have to inflect both them. So, if it is a nominative case, because in these inflections, they can express Sankha and Karaka. So number as well as case. So nouns can be either singular number, dual number, or plural number. Sanskrit has three numbers. And there are eight cases, which is the nominative, the accusative, instrumental, so these are the different cases. So, and it is called that this is the first case ending, this is the second case ending, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and finally in vocative, when you address someone, somebody, that becomes vocative. And they have different forms. So in nominative, if you add this nominative suffix plus nominative, so once you combine these two, Nara Gachati, you mean that one man or a man is going. There will be proper sentences. So that is why words are defined as Suktivantam Padam, that which has either a verbal termination or a nominal termination at the end. Okay, now one thing, yeah.
Keep changing alternating between the markers so that
Okay.
the writing stays the bold.
Okay,
So
which one should I use? This one?
any one you can use. I just
Okay.
keep altering.
Okay. You see, we are learning that we used to move to Chauhan Road, Love Road. So we are on our way out. So what can I can just apologize, what can I say? That those who, you see, conversing with these things, they can do things in a better manner.
It is words are. You
Huh?
can see the full.
So
Alphabets are very
right
small.
big
It will be better, larger. Okay. So here, I would draw your attention to one more thing, that these three schools have also discussed one thing, that when you listen to a sentence, proper sentence, and if you know the language, then it yields a certain cognition, which is a normal cognition or Shabdabodha. And it is a determinate cognition in which something appears as qualified by something else. So there are two parts, the Vishesha and the Visheshana. Now, which one will be the prominent one? That has been a bone of contention. For example, when you say, I'm not writing any Sanskrit here, but say, so how to understand this sentence? What type of cognition would this sentence produce? For the Naiyayikas, in such sentences, declarative sentences, the nominative is the most important part. So they would analyze this as So this is the basic thing. The rest is its the qualifier. How is Rama? And the gachati is analyzed as when verb expresses some activity, and since it is a transitive verb, it needs a result. So what is the result? The result is conjunction with the object where you want to go. So that is how they analyze it. But for the grammarians and the Mīmāṁsakas, the verb is very important. Because they say that the verb is at the center. All other places are, you see, qualifying it from different directions. So for them, this same sentence would mean something like this. So let me add something else. So for them it will be so in Sanskrit it will be so this verb going, this becomes prominent, which has Rama as its nominative case. This is Ashwara, this is instrumental. This is accusative. And this is the verb. And for the grammarians, a verb expresses two things at the same time. An activity and the result produced by it. Follow and vyapara. So as I tell you, Samyoganukulam vyapara. So this contact would be the result, and the activity would be conducive to that. Phalanukulam vyapara. So that is how the grammarians analyze it. For the Bhāṭṭa Mīmāṁsakas, they bring in another notion called bhavana. But that I will come a bit later on. Let me stay in the grammarians for a few more time.
So instead of writing, you can talk about terms.
Okay.
Or shruti, arthanepadi.
So these are the three types, personality, arthanepadi, and uvarapadi. Because there are some verbs which can take both the forms, both personality and arthanepadi. The meaning will be the same, but the forms change. For example, the Parasmati is something, say, Gom is Parasmati, it is Gachati. The first person singular number is Gachati. But Mri, to die, it is Atmanepadi. The first person singular number followed will be a pay, not fee but pay. But some verbs have both the forms. So this is one thing. And the terminations that are added to verb, there are 10 terminations. I need not name all of them, but let me say just one thing, that some of them express tenses, some of them express moods. So among them, we have to select only three if we discuss the inferences, because the imperatives. These are called, first one is me, then, and finally, the note and let. Now, this has been discussed extensively, and this can have two forms. One is so Vidhivākyas, that is primarily something that expresses commands or requests or something else. But assuming that expresses some sort of blessing or something like that. No is wrong, something like that. But the grammatical expression is more or less the same, it's slightly different. Like, for example, the Vidhivākyas, which is the being, if it is Vidhivākyas, then the first person singular number followed the Bhavat. Actually, it will be Bhuyat. But the meaning is more or less the same. The only thing is that here some blessing is expressed. But what about Vidhivākyas? Here we find that there are how many? There are 6 things that can be expressed by Vidhi. But which one it is, you have to decide from the context. And also the status of the speaker and the listener. So let us see what these are. Actually, there is a long aphorism in Panini, Vidhivākyas Amantrana Odishta Sankoshna Parthana Shuddhi. So the first one is Vidhi, the last one is Vidhi. So they join these two and call it Vidhi. But Ashik means blessing. So the ling that is used for Ashik or blessing is called Ashik. So let us see what are expressed by it.
Sir, please use another field.
Sir. So having stated all these things that can be expressed by this vidhi, living form, Panini just says, just says noture, that all these things can be expressed also by note. But there is an additional thing, that note, in addition to all these things, note can also express permission. Which is in Sanskrit only here. This is ajna. And only here. So how to distinguish between these? So it is here, in the case of vidhi, the speaker is superior to the person to whom it is addressed. In the case of prayer, it is reversed. The speaker, the hearer is superior to the speaker. For example, this is when an officer in the army tells his subordinate that do these things, and that's an order. So in that case, the subordinate has no option but to carry it out. He has to carry it out. And in the case of command, the purpose served is the purpose of the speaker. He wants to get certain things done. It may or may not serve the interest of the subordinate. But in the case of prarthana or prayer, it becomes reversed. The person who is praying, say, save me God. So you are not commanding God to save him. You are praying. In this case, the speaker is inferior to the person to whom it is addressed. In Odisha Santoshna, for example, you see, these two also are slightly different because you see there are in the Dharmashastra there are certain duties that are obligatory. And if you say someone that please perform these duties, that becomes nimantana. If you do not do that, then it will be sinful on your part if you flout these rules. But because of amantrana, you may or may not do it. For example, suppose someone is being invited to take part in a marriage feast. So you may or may not participate. You can very well say that no, I cannot go. Thereby, people may be displeased with him, but no one would say that he has become morally bad from that.
So, sir, can you say that in case of invitation, either in Mīmāṁsā or Amantrana, is that not a request also?
You can say, but Here, but what you see, in the case of voluntary is not just a request,
Not just it.
not just a request. Because you see, requests can be accepted or you see, you may perform it or you may not. But this is not exactly a command. So these are the things. Moreover, note, it is used very rarely and only in the Vedic texts. And its form is somewhat like the lot or the present tense, with slight variations here and there. So I'm not going into it, but the Panini Sutras do not have it. That let is used in the same sense as will. So these are the things that ending may express.
People have questions.
Yeah.
So, are there any other texts other than Panini? Panini is absolute for Sanskrit. But are there any other texts that have that has given permission to use let in any other format?
That I do not. The other grammars, like say Katantra or Vidhivākyas, they are non-Vedic grammars. They don't have any Vedic portion at all. So that is why they are smaller grammars, because when you are dealing with the Vedic texts, first of all, there are some irregular forms in Veda. You have to account for that. And moreover, there is one big thing, which is accent. In normal speech, perhaps there was accent at some time or other. From Mahāvāsya Panini, or in the Mahāvāsya Patanjali, we come to know that maybe at times, even in normal speech, accent was there. Let me give you one example. One can form compounds out of words. Say Raja Purusha, a royal servant. So this is formed by Rajna Purusha. In this case, I need to Raja, Rajan and Purusha. And Raja Purusha. So what would be the difference? Now, Patanjali says that we can distinguish between them in three ways. First of all, in Rajna and Purusha, you have two nominal endings. In Rajna is the sixth case ending, and Purusha is the first case ending. But in Raja Purusha, the inflection in the first word, it is elided, it is not there. So, Suvalopo, when you have a sentence, these endings are not elided, there is no loop. But in Samasa, one or more, if you have a long compound, then more than one inflections will have to be dropped. So in Dhamma Samasa and other cases. So Suvalopo. Now Sanskrit is an inflected language. Its structure is very flexible. You can say Rajna Purusha. You can also say Purusha Rajna. The meaning will not change. In certain languages, say like English, if you change the order, the meaning can change. So, Buddha skill scissor, if you turn it around, scissor kills Buddhas, then the meaning is the same thing. But here, since the inflections are there, you know what is what. So order doesn't really matter. So Suvalopo, Yafashta Vayu Sambandha, you can change the order. But in Raja Purusha, you cannot say Purusha Raja. Then the meaning will change. And finally says Swara Iti. That in the sentence Rajna Purusha, there are two accents, one for Rajna, one for Purusha. But when you form a compound Raja Purusha, there is only one accent. So from this observation of Patanjali, at least it seems to me that there was some time when, even in normal speech, accents were there. And gradually it is, one doesn't take care to that. But in the Vedic texts, sorrow or accent is of great importance, because with the change of sorrow, the meaning will change. I can give you just one example. One Vedic scholar told me, I am no scholar of Vedas. In Pune, one professor told me this. He gave me this example. I asked him that how is it that meaning can change due to change in accent? He said that take the word ahi. If the accent happens on a, then ahi would be a snake. But if the accent is on ha, it will be a river. Vahi shabdasya, madhyadaptasya, vidhivākyas. So if there is an without accent or you see high accent, then the meaning would change. So in this way, things go on. But in other grammars, they try to make it simpler by omitting the Vedic portion. So that is why by studying the other grammars, it becomes very difficult to account for the Vedic expressions in many cases. Because there are many irregular forms. Take for example one prayer. In Taittiriya Upanishad, after studying all things, there is a prayer for the student, which ends with Shutamino Gopaya. Please protect what I have learned. But normally the form is Gopaya. But in Vedic, it becomes Gopaya. So that is why in many cases, Panini had to make these exceptions. There is a Chandasi Vedam, that is Vedas, there is exception to this. I'll just give one more example and then come back to the topic. Normally, in ordinary Sanskrit, prefixes are formed or occur just before the verb. For example, Vachati, Agachati. Vachati means goes, Agachati means comes. Now, so Panini has believed that te Prābhākaras, these prefixes, they occur before the vowel base. But the next rule is Chandasi Vedam. But this rule is not always maintained in the Vedas. I will give you just one example. In the mantras that are performed, that are uttered during the Sandhya Vandanas or daily prayers, there is one mantra in the Surjapasthapana. It starts with Udutyam Jata Vedasam, Devam Vahanti Ketava. And then Visha Vishwaya Surjam. I could make any sense out of it. With Udu, what does Udu mean? No dictionary helped me. So ultimately I asked a Vedic scholar, that sir, what is the meaning of this verse? He said, Udu is not a word. It is composed of two words, ut and u. Ut is a prefix or upasarga. And what is u? He says, no, u is just a word for Prābhākaras. It is only for the meter. It has no meaning. This is the prefix, then where is the verb? He said, there is a Vahanti, Devam Vahanti Ketava. So this ut has to be joined with Vahanti, which comes after so many words. Ut, u, tyang, jatavedasam, devam, and then Vahanti. So there is a gap of about 5 words.
This is something like a German language.
Framework. One get suruk. When suruk, it becomes split up, suruk becomes separated, but not in all cases. But anyway, so that is another thing to be discussed. I was trying to show why Panini had to make so many rules where exceptions are to be found in the Vedas. Okay. Sure, I will give you some examples from this both Vidhi and Vidhi, affirming and note to see how. I take one example of this ajna. So the English would be so the Satyam Veda is part of Taittiriya Upanishad, which is the Shiksha that will finally Satyam Veda, Dharmamchara, and so on. So this is a note, but Satyam Veda, that is individually formed. But what is a personal pada? So let us take one or two authoritative forms. Uh, this form is note, but this is Atmane pada. You see, the forms are a bit different, but the meaning would be more or less the same. Now, one more thing, to give you about some idea about how exhaustive Panini has been when he is trying to fix the meanings or the areas where this can be used. The first rule of this, Vidhivākyas, prāmāṇyavākya, is a long list. But there are also some other rules which points out that in certain cases it can mean something else, things other than this. So what are they? One is this, what exactly is? So how would go ahead? So it doesn't mean that he ought to carry this load. Here it means he is capable of carrying the load. So this is one more meaning. Then or if you take note then. That you are capable of carrying the load. So that would be meaning with samartha shakti. Then there is another meaning. It can mean desire, ichha. But you see, there should be also some word expressing this desire in the sentence. For example, it is ichhami bhavan bhunjita. I desire that you take a meal here. Or bhavan bhunjtam. So bhunjita would be the beginning form. It is in affirmative. And bhunjtam, this would be note. Then one more thing is possibility. The example is so here also you see this that this is in the beginning form. So anything else? Sure. So this is how beginning can be used. One more thing for the grammarians. It is not the case that imperatives or commands or requests are always expressed by verbs. They can also be expressed by nouns. And there are 5 or 6 suffixes added to the verb, which is called krityapratyaya or krityapratyaya. These are
It's time to speak on Mīmāṁsā.
yes, I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. For example, you see something that ought to be done. When you say, you should do this, you can also say, Pujat, you can also say, Tava. And these 5 Tattvaputtras are Tavya, So respective forms from these would be say kartabya. So these three have the same meaning, from the same verb kri, doing something. So this kartabya, karaniya and karya, all these means something that ought to be done. So it is not only the verbs, but also by nouns, the adjectives, that you can express a command. So let me now come to the view of the Mīmāṁsakas. So as I told you, for the Bhāṭṭa Mīmāṁsakas, in these imperative sentences or commands, what is expressed is bhavana. Now, bhavana means something that is conducive to the production of something. Now, how to account for that? And they maintain that this bhavana is expressed by the verb. For example, for us, say kurjat, it has two parts. So they maintain that this expresses what is called artha bhavana. And this expresses artha bhavana. It is something which is common to all, and it is also expressed by yat. No, no, I'm wrong. So, but this yat or yat has two features. One is it is one of the 10 lakaras. So, the common property is called lakaratva. So, a common property that is common to all the verbal endings. And this yat, it is peculiar to ling. This is expressed this, by virtue of this nimitya or lotva, they express shabda bhavana. So, what would be the meaning of Yagam Kurjat? Sarvakama Yagam Kurjat, that one desirous of heaven should perform a sacrifice. It would be Sarva Karanika, Sarva Bhadyaka, Yaga Karanika, sorry, Sarva Sadhaka, प्रयादि इति कर्तव्यता का शब्द अर्थ भावना, that will be meaning that the bhavana which has the heaven as its effect, then certain other rituals as the means to which it is done, or the manner in which it is performed. So each bhavana has three parts. One is saddha. So that which is to be produced by it. Then sadhana. The means through which it is to be produced. And finally, iti kartavyata. So the manner in which it is to be done.
Come to the end now.
Okay, yeah. Now one more thing. We have 2 or 3 minutes more. Because then we next talk also. So this authoritative Pandita. So King Bhavet, what is to be produced? That is answered by this part. Kena Bhavet, through what it is to be accomplished. This is sadhana part. And in what manner it should be done. So that is how they explain it. That this happens in the case of all things. But the point is, the interesting point is, why do this is, after all, what are these imperatives or sentences? They are supposed to produce some activity in the hearer. How they do it? And here this point is that there is some result to be achieved. So if you're interested in the result, then you want to know how it is to be. If you desire it, then it has to be specified how it can be obtained, or through what means or in what manner. So that is why for them these sentences they produce some activity in the listener. But the Prābhākaras, they are not deontic, they are not consequentialists. They would say that if you say that the Vedas or other scriptures, they produce an activity in someone by showing him some desirable result, this is not proper, because ultimately the Vedas show the way for your final use of moksha. If it is tied down to these desirable things, then you get down back there. So why not you accept that it is just a sense of duty on your will that impels people to do it? Whether the result is there or not is another thing. This debate has gone so long. Maybe 2 or 3 lectures may be necessary for that. Maybe on some future occasion. I'll just come to the Naiyayikas and then stop. The Naiyayikas are divided into 2 camps. The older ones, like Bhāṭṭa or they maintain that it expresses the desire of the speaker, Bhakti Abhipraya. So when the listener knows that this is what the speaker wants, and if he finds that it is better for me to abide by this command, then one does it. But no one, you see, if a devotic person says do it, no one does it, even though it is an imperative. No Shabda Bhavana will make one act according to the command of or request of a devoted or of a child. So, in these cases, when one considers them to be authoritative, then you know that what the speaker wants. And finally, for the Nabiyas, the later ones, they say that after listening to such a sentence, authoritative sentence, the listener comes to know 3 things. That first of all, if I carry out this work, it will lead to some desirable result. Then second point is, it will not lead to some result that is more undesirable than the desirable one. And finally, this can be done by me. Because no authoritative person would tell you to do something which is impossible for them to do. So this Ishtasadharata, this is one part, that this is means of achieving something desirable. Then Balavat Anishta, it is not associated with any undesirable result that exceeds the desirability. And Kritisadhata, that it is possible for human beings to achieve this. But this is what it actually means and how it makes one to, makes the listener do something. It's a long debate. Maybe 500 or 600 years have gone on through arguments and counter arguments. But anyway, thanks for your patience. I've been out of practice for about how many years? 14 years. I began in 2011. So Please excuse me for any lapses.
So we now come to the end of the lecture. Now we will have a tea break. After that, I think after 20 minutes, we'll come again back for the next session. Thank you.